Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about how to travel overseas as a South African. If you've never done this before, this video is going to help you apply for a visa, understand the passport requirements, get on the plane, and hopefully have a ball of a time. I'm going to be talking about the process of how I am going to be attacking my visa application. I am traveling to a Schengen state. I'm going to explain what that is and how you can too, if this is something that you are interested in doing. So if you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Nyaki. I teach people how to make money, but also how to make money babies online. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to spend your money, and traveling is obviously the best way to do that. But you have probably found yourself wanting to go to Europe or somewhere in a Schengen state, and now you need to figure that out. So the first thing that you need to understand is the Schengen concept when especially planning for a place like Europe. So Europe is made up of multiple different countries, and a lot of those countries, not all of them, form part of what is called a Schengen state. The Schengen state is made up of all those countries that kind of have an agreement of movement and trade within them. So if you are visiting, for example, France, you can very easily on the same visa visit Germany, and with the same visa visit Italy, visit Spain, right? So you can travel around the Schengen states on a single visa. The visa application, though, for any Schengen country, the rule is that you apply for a visa for the state that you are going to be at in the longest. So if you are traveling to multiple countries within the Schengen state, the one that is you're going to be staying the longest is the home country, and that's where you would apply for your visa. So if you are going to be 20 days in Europe, 15 days in Germany, and 5 days in Spain, even if you are going to Spain first and Spain last, if you are spending 15 out of those 20 days in Germany, I need to go to the German visa application to apply for the visa. Okay, so that's basically how the visa application works, and that is how you would choose to apply. I'm going to be talking today as a South African. I carry and I travel on a South African passport. And so if you are not traveling on a South African passport, you need to make sure that you follow the same rules, but same system, but understand how your passport needs what your passport needs are, because not all passports need visas. Not all visas are going to look the same depending on the passport that you have. So if you are traveling with a Nigerian passport versus traveling with a Singaporean passport, very different requirements, and so you need to be able to do that. I'm going to be talking about as a South African. So the first thing that you need to do before you even start planning your visa process, or even thinking about your trip, think about your trip, but when you're thinking about your trip, is make sure that you have a valid passport. Validity of a passport is one of two things. Number one, you need to have enough pages in your passport. If this is the first time you've traveled, this is not going to apply for you. If you're not a big traveler, this is not going to apply for you. But if you have been traveling, whether you've been going to Swaziland, to Mozambique, to America, if every time you travel, you get a stamp. If you do not have enough pages in your passport, you need at least 2 pages, your passport is not going to be valid. The second thing, which is critically important, is that you need to have the right amount. The expiry date of your passport cannot be within 6 months of your travel. Some places will say 3 months. I caution you. I have seen people been refused entry on a flight that they have paid for because their visa expired exactly 6 months within their traveling period. Their passport expired. So make sure that you have at least 6 months on your passport, which means if you are traveling in January and your passport expires in July, it's already just get another passport, right? Please. So valid passport, at least 2 pages, at least 6 months worth of travel. How it works with with the visa, there are a list of requirements, and I'm going to be talking about that. But before you even plan about visas and trying to understand that, the first thing that I always do is understand the affordability, understand how much I plan on or could potentially need to spend in that country to live a comfortable and to have a comfortable experience, right? Because the last thing you want to do, especially when you're traveling, and this is something that I always say, you don't want to leave home and go be poor in another country. Like, it is not great to experience that. If you've ever traveled more to very expensive countries, you can feel it, right? You're just like, a beggar for 900 rand. this feels right. You end up not enjoying yourself. And so what I like to do before I plan any trip, this is even how I determine whether or not we're going to go to a place, is compare how much it's going to cost. So there are services online. I'm currently using one now, and it's basically comparing the cost of living between two places. So I'm going to be in Madrid, which is part of the Schengen state, and so what I do is that I will then go in and compare how much certain things cost. Generally, I will peg 3 or 4 things. So I will always find out what an inexpensive restaurant is, what an expensive restaurant is, how much a beer costs, how much a Coca-Cola costs, and then how much a 1-bedroom apartment costs. Those are basically like the things that you can like kind of understand, like different sectors, but different costs that you're going to incur. So I'm using Madrid as an example, and I can see that an inexpensive restaurant in South Africa or Johannesburg is 200 Rand versus Madrid is 291 Rand. So, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more, but not astronomically. Then I like to check what the price of a beer costs. Even if you don't drink, it's a good measure to be able to see like how just outside entertainment is like, right? So a domestic beer in South Africa is 40 Rand. South African a beer in Madrid is 68 Rand. Okay, that's fine. A Coca-Cola or a soft drink in South Africa is 20 Rand, and then in Madrid it's 55 Rand. So you can already see that the cost of living is significantly higher in a place like Madrid, but you are also able to guesstimate how much higher, right? So it's not like your things are expensive, it's that things are more than double the price, right? So that's what I like to check. I obviously skip out on groceries. You can check groceries if you want. And then I check your 1-bedroom apartment. So a 1-bedroom apartment in Johannesburg is listed here at around 9,000 Rand. Does that sound accurate? Sure. And then in Madrid, the same 1-bedroom apartment would then be 25,000 Rand. So now I know how much roughly it's going to cost me in a month to be able to live, right? So for starters, the lowest I will pay for rent is 24,000 Rand. I use rent obviously because rent is kind of pegged against hotels, but that is like the bare minimum that you'll be able to pay. That is like a really good indicator to be able to decide, okay, this country I can afford. Regardless of whether I can afford Madrid or not, I am going. And so let us move on to what I do next, which is then the visa process. So the visa process is quite simple. You need to do a Google search to find out which visa office you are applying to. And what the requirements are. The visa for the Schengen state is all the same, 99% the same. You just need to find out what those requirements are. And so I'm going to be going through the checklist of visa requirements for a Schengen visa. So step number 1 is that you need a valid passport. I've already spoken about what the valid passport is. The second thing that you're going to need is your photograph. A photograph, they have specific sizes. This one is a 4.5 by 3.5. Just get it done at the photo place. Tell them that you're applying for a Schengen visa. They know how to clip it. They know how to take the picture. If you do it at home and you try and print it and you get the wrong size, then they're going to reject it and it's the whole thing. So just go to the place that takes photos. Tell them you're going for a visa, and then or specifically Schengen visa, and they'll be able to do that. Then you need a proof of residence, right? This is your rental agreement, your municipal statement, anything that shows that you have a physical address. If you are in between places, try and get like even a letter from where you are staying to be able to say like, okay, this person lives here or whatever, right? And that proof of address. The next thing that you need is going to be an itinerary. So what happens with the visa application, right, is that they want you to prove that you do not want to live and like stay in that country. Like if they let you in, you have every right and every plan to come back into your country. You're not just going to like disappear into their country and become a bum on their state, right? So the whole process of a visa application is you proving, number 1, that you can afford to be there, but number 2, you have no intention of staying. You are going to come back. There is a reason to come back to your home country or to move on to another country. So the whole process is that thing. So when you have that in your mind, you need to think about the level of detail that you almost need to show like, hey buddy, I'm comfortable. I don't need to be where you're going. And this is my actual plan. So you need to prove, or you need to show your itinerary, right? Itinerary from the day you leave the airport in your home country until the day you arrive in your home country, right? It needs to be detailed, but it doesn't need to be like, you don't have to say you don't have to account for every hour of every day, but you do need to account for every day. Even if you don't know what activities you'll be doing, you do need to know where you will be living on that day, right? Regardless of if you are in the Schengen state, which country you're in. So if you're going to be 3 days in Germany, 4 days in Croatia, they need to be able to say, like, in Germany, these are the 3 hotels that you can be staying in. In Croatia, these are the 2 hotels that you can be staying in, right? So you need to have pre-booked your accommodation, and I'll talk to that in a minute. So you need to show your the exact number of dates. I like to use a spreadsheet, and I'll share that below for you so you can see what that looks like. But every single day needs to be accounted for in some level of detail. The second thing that you also need to include in that itinerary, but also as part of your submission pack, is your transport, right? So you need to, unfortunately, have your flight booked to the place that you're going, return flight, to be able to apply for the visa, right? So I'll be leaving from Johannesburg, going to Madrid. Even if you are going to places in between, I need to be able to show my return flight home back to my country, and then any other mode of transport that I'm going to be taking inside, if it's major transport, if it's major transportation. Like, so if you're going from Germany to France, you may want to be able to show that flight that you have, or that train that you're going to be taking, or the bus that you're going to be taking, right? You don't have to, for the internal things, you don't have to have everything booked 100%, but at least have an idea and have a plan, right? So this is all going to go in your spreadsheet that you are creating. Then you need to have your accommodation. If you are staying with someone, the rule is that you should get that person to write you a letter and to basically write an invitation. We've done this before. It works fine. However, a simpler, much simpler way to do it is just book accommodation that you can cancel, right? Because when you have the booking.com or hotel reservation, it is easier to submit it as a thing than if you have to have your friend write a letter or your uncle write a letter, and then he has to get it stamped, and then he also needs to get it translated. It's a lot of work. Book, cancel. Like, it's just the easiest way to do it. In canceling, though, you must only cancel after you've received your visa application, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so accommodation, depending where you are staying. If you're going on a cruise, you also need to provide all of that information. And one thing that I will say, like with the cancellation, so what happened to me once was I had booked accommodation. It was with booking.com, and I didn't really like the place, so I changed it. But I had already submitted that hotel reservation to my visa application. They rejected, or they didn't reject it. They flagged it to say, hey bro, you've submitted your booking.com thing here, but you don't the reservation has been canceled. What's going on? So I had to resubmit a new booking. So like the whole thing with your documents is that they have to be valid, right? So your flight has to be valid. Your bookings have to be valid. Cancelable, yes, because obviously you may not 100% want to stay in that place, or you may want the flexibility of choosing another place. You don't need to have all of those options, but if you do, this is just the way the workaround. Then you need to have your travel insurance. So travel insurance, in the past, you needed to buy extra travel insurance, but most medical aids actually have travel insurance, international travel insurance built in. We are on Discovery. I think we're on a Key Care something. We don't even get doctor's visits. So it's a very low entry medical aid. You get travel insurance with that. Travel insurance, you just go on the website and you'll download the form that basically says this person is eligible or is covered for international thing. If not, just phone the insurance people and ask them. If you don't have medical aid, you can 100% and you should 100% get a out-of-pocket travel insurance. They are generally really, really cheap. I think the last there was a time I didn't know that you could use international, your local thing. I had paid for travel insurance, and I think it works out to $24 per person for the entire time, right? It's not a big amount of money. It's just you need to have that cover. With travel insurance, though, you are not covered even by your own, especially by your own travel insurance, for extreme, anything that they deem as an extreme sport. So if you plan on doing skydiving or paragliding or anything that you could potentially get seriously injured in, rather take out additional insurance, because what your insurance is going to cover you for is accidental anything. So just normal accidental thing. And then if you die in that country, they'll be able to repatriate you, right? So if you get your finger broken, or like if you get your arm chopped off because you were skydiving, your insurance is going to be like, but why did you go to that country to go and die? Right? But if you get into a car accident, your insurance will be fine. You may need to pay in that country and then reimburse yourself. So also make sure that, like, if you are traveling, that you've got access to even just credit, right? It's a weird thing that you need, unfortunately, but you do need to have it. Okay. Then you need to have your letter of employment. Again, remember, you need to make sure that you are showing that you have no intention of staying in their country, right? If you are self-employed, like I am, you will need to have a letter that says Nyaki, who is employed by Club She is leaving, she's on leave between this time and this time. Same thing if you were going to apply for your own company. Please don't, even if you are, like, if you work for yourself, submit nothing in this area, especially the creatives, right? If you're a videographer or a photographer, or you work consulting hours, and sometimes you've got money, sometimes you don't have money, or whatever. Don't do that, right? Because you are a flight risk. Like, you sound like someone who can stay in the country and just bum, right? And live off the land. We don't want you. You're going to get rejected. So make sure that you're showing within your, that you've got no intention of staying, right? So letter of employment, and then, yeah, you can even submit your pay slips or something just to show, like, you work here, whatever. Then the biggest one, this is the one that hackles everybody. We are just like, how much money do I need? How much money do you need in your bank account? Ha 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 ha. They tell you how much money you need to have in your bank account, right? So this is the Schengen one. It tells you that you need 118 euros per day per person, right? 118 euros is 2,272 rand per person. So if you're going for 10 days, you need to have at least 22,000 rand in your bank account in order to get approved for a visa, right? Per person. That is the bare minimum, right? And also you need a balance of 1,065 euros. So 1,065 euro. So you need to have at least 20,000 rand sitting in your bank account. So basically you need to have like a good 20,000 rand and so basically like 25,000 rand plus another 25,000 rand. So you need at least 50,000 rand in your bank account to be able to say. So that's basically what they say here. So it literally says with a bare minimum of 1,065 euros reflecting on the bank statement, regardless of the number of days intended to stay. This is basically so that they know that if anything happens, right, your flight is delayed, there's something that you can't leave the country, you can still comfortably sustain yourself. Because if you can't, they are going to reject your visa. If you are traveling together, right, husband and wife, you will almost like submit your applications together. And so you don't both have to have 100,000 or 50,000 and 50,000. No, actually you do. You both have to have enough 50,000. So if it's together, one person's bank account can have the 100,000, right? If they're the main bank account holder, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, just make sure that it's a per person per day kind of thing. I don't know how it works if you're traveling with children. I've never applied to do anything with children. So you're going to have to find out what that is. But I mean, juice, right? If your child is going to be living with you, they don't need another 50,000, but maybe just use your brain. Okay. Then traveling with minors, I don't know how you need to do that, but there is obviously like things that you need to have when you are traveling with minors. You need to get their things certified, and that you need to figure out, because don't just assume because you got your things that there's like a whole process with traveling with kids, especially if you are traveling alone with your kids, or if it's a step parent or something, there are issues that you need to sort out. That's basically the visa process. What you do with all of that information, so you take your passport, valid passport, then you also make a copy of your passport, of the plastic part, make a copy. Then you make sure that you've got enough money in your bank account. You will print your bank statements. You will print your proof of address. You will print your itinerary. You will print all your booking information, including your flight information, and you will submit that to the visa office. What does that mean? It means you will go on the website to apply. Then you will set up your appointment, right? So basically you apply for your short-term visa, and there is there's a registration process. I'll put the details below for Spain specifically. You will apply for you will book your appointment, right? And then you will go. It's going to be like an office park. Generally, it's not home affairs. It's like a private facility. So it's not chaotic. But go within your allotted time. You're going to take all your documents, and then you're going to submit them to the office. They may ask you a couple of questions. Make sure that you understand what's happening, right? So usually I'm the one who's planning the trips, but I need to make sure that my husband understands what's happening. Because sometimes you go there and they're like, okay, where are you going to be on the 15th? And you're like, right? Do not know, right? So have a rough idea. You don't have to know specifically, but have a rough idea of where you're going, how long you're going to be there. If you're going for any specific reason, your stories must match. Your stories must match each other, but also your stories must match the information that you've given them. Also, with visas, overshare, right? If you've got a party coming up next week, or you're speaking at a conference in Johannesburg when you come back, submit that as information. You cannot give them, you would rather them throw stuff out than them ask you for stuff, for information. They can ask you, and they do sometimes ask you for corrections, or if there's something missing or there's something that's unclear. But the anxiety during that process, I don't know. I would not advise it. Just submit, rather overshare when it comes to your application. So then you would go, and then in 15 days you will get a letter or an email that says, please come and fetch your application, and then you will see whether or not it was approved by getting your stamp, which looks, they basically put a little paper in your passport. I'm trying to find one. That looks like this, right? Just covering the face here. That looks like this. And this is basically your visa. Before you leave the visa office, they're going to tell you to check all your details. Do not listen to them. Sometimes you're like, check every single letter, every single number that has been printed on here, because you can miss something. The person who boards you on your flight can miss something that the immigration will pick up. And now you're there, ready to you've flown. You've already done the 16 hours of flying. Now you're here and they say, yeah, but you see your surname is spelled incorrectly, or there's a number missing. Make sure you check. If there's anything, you flag it with the people. But usually it should be fine, and then you are ready to go. So you've obviously now applied for your visa, but there was obviously going to be a step that you needed before that, which was making the actual bookings. And so that's what this section is going to be. I'm going to refer you to how I make my flight bookings. You don't have to do this. Obviously, this is just the way that I'm doing it. Okay, so the thing that I use, or the search engine that I use, is called Momondo. It's basically like an aggregator of different flights and different companies and different services. It's just everything comes together, and you'll be able to see all the cheapest flights and also the best flights. The other thing that I really like about Momondo is that, I'll show you now, is that it allows you to choose days. You're able to see holistically which are the cheapest days to fly. So I'm sharing my screen again, and I am looking at flights. So what I was saying is you can see, the green days. Do that. The green days are going to be the cheapest to fly, the orange are going to be the medium, and the red days are going to be the most expensive. So you will be able to choose the dates that you want to travel based on obviously the time that you're wanting to fly. So let me just fix that. Let's just pretend I'm traveling on the 9th of November until the 26th of November. I'm traveling with 2 people. And then you can choose whether you want to fly, which class you want to fly. I've never flown anything but economy, so I can't even advise you there. And what you're going to then see is what it kind of like aggregates the different flights, and then it will choose the best, the cheapest, and then it will basically suggest the best flight for you to take. The way that it's choosing the best flight for you to take is based on 2 things. So flight time and layover time. So if you don't know what a layover is, this is when you lean in, because this is what I'm going to be explaining to you. So basically your flight is made up of 2 things. So the actual flight time between, okay, so backtrack. Where you are choosing a flight, the flight of the airline obviously belongs to a country. The flight will always go to its home country, right? So if I'm flying Emirates, that home country is Dubai. So Emirates flights will always go to Dubai. If I'm flying Qatar, they will always fly to Doha, right? If I'm flying Kenyan Airways, it will always fly to Kenya. So thinking about the flight time is that you will have to go from Johannesburg to Kenya if you're flying Kenya Airways, then Kenya to the destination that you're going. That's the thinking around it, right? But what generally happens is that when they arrive in the country, so you're flying Kenya Airways, so you're flying Johannesburg, Kenya to Madrid. When you arrive in Kenya, they're going to be refueling, they're going to be waiting for other passengers or whatever, and that can take some time. That is called a layover. If you've ever heard anybody talk about a layover, this is what a layover is. It's when the flight is in its home country or in a country, and it is refueling and it is waiting for people or whatever. The layover can be any length of time. Right? You can have a 30-minute layover, you can have a 2-hour layover, you can have a 16-hour layover. All of that affects the time, the duration of the flight. Right now, you're flying for 36 hours, but also it will affect the price. So generally, flights that have a cheaper, that are cheaper may have a longer layover just because of demand and all of that stuff. So when you're looking at flights, those are the things that you need to consider, and that's what you'll be able to see on something like a flight reader. The only thing that you need to pay attention to when you are flying, especially if you're flying to a country that's in a different time zone, is the time that you see is the time in the location. So if, for example, this says 19:05 in Johannesburg, that is going to be the time in Johannesburg. So when I look at my time in Johannesburg, that's going to be the time, and then the next time is where I'm going to be. So this is going to be 16:25 or whatever time this is, 6 o'clock in Istanbul, right? Regardless of the time zone, because I know time zones can be a little bit tricky. We're going to Europe. We basically have the same time zone, so it's not a big issue. So when I wake up in Turkey, it's going to be 6 o'clock, right? Even though I've only flown 9 or 10 hours, right? Because that shouldn't, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it should be like 4 o'clock, basically, right? It's not. It's going to be 6 o'clock because that's the time in the location that I'm in, right? So this is Turkish Airline, and I can see that over here. It says Turkish Airline. I fly for 9 hours, and then I arrive in Istanbul, and then we do a 7.55, so basically 8-hour changeover layover in Istanbul. So I will be in Turkey if I choose this flight. It's a really good flight. If I choose this flight, to spend the 7 or the 8 hours in Istanbul. Now, layovers can be fun. They can be something that adds to your trip, but they can also be a nuisance, right? So the way that a layover becomes fun and something that you can add to your trip is one of 2 things. So the time that you're going to have in the country, right? Okay, if it's 16 hours, cool. We can be 16 hours. The time that you arrive. So arriving at midnight and having to wait 16 hours versus arriving, for example, at 5 o'clock in the morning and having 16 hours is a very different experience. Versus, and then the third thing is whether or not you're able to even go into the country. So during a layover like this, like an 8-hour layover, we can choose to get off the flight. Definitely get off the flight. You get off the flight. Your baggage stays. They take it to where you're going, Madrid. You can stay you can either stay at the airport, But if the permit, or if your visa, if your passport allows it, or your visa allows it, you can leave. Now you're in the country, right? You can go and spend the day in Turkey. So this flight would be amazing for that, because number one, South Africans don't need a visa to get to Turkey. So if we land at 6 a.m. in the morning on Istanbul and we've got 8 hours, we can effectively take a bus, go do a hop off on at Istanbul, go to some coffee shop, right? You can physically leave the country because now you're there. But the opposite can be true, right? There could be a country that you land and you leave, right? You need to apply for a visa, like any country, whatever other country, even Dubai, you need a visa sort of. But say for example, now you're stuck for 8 hours in the airport. So think about your layover like that. It can be something that you use to your advantage. But if it's a layover that's in a weird place for a long time, it will probably frustrate you, right? Not all layovers are full. Like this, okay, for example, this layover. This is, for me personally, I would not choose this layover. You land in Kenya at 7:30 or 6:30, and then you've got 10 hours, and then you must fly out at 4:30 in the morning, which means between 6 and, like, everything is closing at that time. So you're in a new country, it's dark, you arrive at 6 or 7, you must do what? Unless you know someone in Kenya, like, it doesn't make sense to spend 10 hours because you're literally just going to go sleep, and then you have to wake up at very early in the morning to catch a 4 a.m. flight. Passing this one, right? So think about how you would want to spend the day, and if there is enough time. So 2 hours to change plates as a layover is not enough time to go. You can't leave the airport if you've only got 2 hours. So something like that. So think about that as your layover. But that's basically how you would book your flight. So for example, you've chosen something that you like. Okay, they suggest this one because it's the best price. It's 11,900 and then it's 23,000 together. So then I'll be able to choose which booking provider that I will go for. If I choose the lowest price, I must use this website, which is great. Remember, when you are applying for your visa, right, you need to have booked something you have to have made an actual booking. And so when you are booking your flight, make sure that you're booking a flight that is flexible, that you are able to change dates, or that you're possibly even able to cancel. It is a service that you pay on a little bit extra, but it is 100% worth it, because if something does happen, even if it's not that your visa gets rejected, if you get sick, if there is a tsunami or something, you want to be able to not lose out on the entire 23,000 Rand that you've just spent booking flights. So usually there is an upgrade to flexi ticket like this. So this is going to be 3,900 Rand for both passengers. Perfect, right? Spend the 4,000 Rand, make sure that it gives you the guarantee that if anything happens, you'd be able to change the flight perfectly fine. So I would book this flight with the flexi ticket. That's basically how you book the flight. Then the second thing obviously is going to be booking your accommodation. I personally use booking.com for most of the accommodation. And the reason why I use them is because I am a Genius member. So because I've been using them, I get little points. And so I have like maybe a 10 or 15 or 20% discount. I also just prefer, so I'll use either booking.com or Airbnb. Now, I do need to caution you with accommodation. South Africa's standard of accommodation is beautiful. Guys, we live in one of the best countries that treats people with dignity. We just got it all, okay? So when you leave South Africa, from the minute you get off the aeroplane, I know you think you're going to better, greener pastures. You're not, okay? You're leaving Princess Land and you're going to the absolute ghetto. It's wild out there. Is that our standards in South Africa are so high versus standards in other countries, especially European countries. Unequivocally, you can come for me, okay? 3-star in South Africa is great, right? It's a Protea hotel. It's something that you will spend the night and you'll feel comfortable, and you could even stay for longer. Like, it's a hotel that you would visit. Some 3-stars in a lot of 3-stars in the other European countries. Just look at reviews before you book at a place, guys. Look at reviews, like interrogate the place. Look at what the bathroom looks like. Look at how much light you get whether or not you get a window. Like, these are big things. Because the standard of living in South Africa is just that much better. Like, I think we stayed in Paris one year, and the entire suite was like literally the size of a bathroom. You're just like, I mean, the toilet is right. I can touch the toilet from my bed. This feels a bit small. So accommodation is obviously like a big thing, but I will either use booking.com or I will use Airbnb. Airbnb, obviously, you know how to use it, but just check all the reviews. Make sure with Airbnb, especially in Europe, that you are booking the entire place and not a room in someone's house, unless that's what you want to do, because there is a lot of that happening, where you think you're getting the entire place, but it's actually just a room in someone's house. If that's something that you want to do and it's in your budget, totally fine, do it. I'm just giving you the cautionary tale to be able to say that. So check your accommodation. Again, with booking.com, the reason why we like to use it, especially when we are booking for visas, is that you can find a place that has free cancellation. So once you've booked it, especially if it's very far in advance, right? Because what happens is you'll see a place and then you want to keep looking and maybe you find something better or you whatever. So you can find a place that has free cancellation or whose cancellation policies suit you, right? So whether it's, you can cancel within 5 days before arriving or pay, you know what I mean? Whatever there is. The other thing with your with accommodation generally is a lot of the places, especially in Europe, have taxes. So you may pay taxes over and above what you're supposed to pay. So you'll pay the booking fee and then you'll see there's a tourist tax that you must pay. Some places, I know with like Venice, the tourist taxes per day, you pay like €5 per day or whatever. But sometimes it's just like a flat off, once off, okay, €25 per day or €25 tax per person or city tax or whatever taxes that they have. So generally they may do that. When you submit, especially for booking.com, you may need to submit a copy of your passport. That's also something that they do. It's not them trying to be funny with you. Obviously communicate with them. Communication, if you are going to with Airbnb, is generally going to be with WhatsApp. Most European countries do that. But yeah, that's it. I think I've covered everything. So I've spoken about the visa, I've spoken about the Schengen, I've spoken about your visa application, I've spoken about money you need, I've spoken about how you book flights, and I've also spoken about how you book accommodation. I am going for a wedding, and so part of what I'm going to be adding on into my pack is going to be my wedding invitation, right? Because again, we want to overshare, we want to get we don't want to be in a country. Okay, we're just coming and then we're going. So let me know if this was helpful. If there is anything that you have or questions that you have, please leave them in the comments below and I will make sure to check up on them. And then I will share all the links that I've referred to as well in the bottom. And then if there is something that I haven't shared, please let me know and I will do that. Thank you. Bye.